Hi everyone. In this video I'm going to talk about how to harness the power of the infinite intelligence that is available to you as you move forwards on your manifesting journey. Now first of all, you have to remember that although you are experiencing yourself as this little human who has a limited amount of knowledge and a limited amount of skills, in reality you are directly connected to all knowledge, to all power, to all of infinity, in fact. Actually, you're not just connected, you actually are that infinite intelligence experiencing itself as this little human, which means that while you are giving yourself the experience of not knowing it all, you still always have access to the part of yourself that does know it all. Now, our little human brains, they can't handle too much information at the same time. If they were to download all the knowledge about everything in one go, we wouldn't be able to take it. Our brain would explode. So, in order to be able to function as a physical human, we are deliberately being selective and only downloading the information required to deal with our specific life and our specific situation. Otherwise, we just wouldn't be able to operate in a rational, cohesive way. It would be just too much for our brains to cope with. But the higher self, on the other hand, can see absolutely everything. It knows all of your possible futures. It knows exactly what every single one of your desires is. In fact, not only does it know every single thing you want right now, it also knows every single thing you're ever going to want in the future. Things that you haven't even begun to even dream about yet. And it already has the perfect plan to give you every single one of those things. Now, why is this important? Well, when you understand this, what it means is that you can use your human self for what it is designed for, which is to understand the context of your current situation and to take the actions relevant to the present moment. And you can rely on the higher self to take care of everything else. And when you operate in this way, then everything functions very smoothly because you're using the different parts of yourself for what they were designed for. But if you try to take over at the human level, then you will mess with the perfection of the infinite intelligence that the higher self has, and you will always come up with something that is less perfect than what the higher self can come up with, because our human logic just can't compete with that infinite intelligence that exists at that level. So you need to treat your higher self kind of as your very sophisticated GPS system that is always there with you, helping you navigate the terrain of this physical world. So your job as this physical human is to set your destination to whatever you want it to be and then completely hand everything over to the higher self to do all the rest. Now, the higher self is a lot more sophisticated than a GPS system because it isn't just taking the current map of reality and working out a path for you within that current reality. No, the way this works is a lot more fascinating than that. What this does is that when you choose your destination, it will actually create a completely new reality for you. A reality that contains the outcome that you have chosen and the path from where you are now to the outcome. So it's actually not something that already exists, or to be more correct, it hasn't yet been physicalized until this point. That moment of you choosing actually creates an entirely new story that wasn't in physical form before. Your simple act of choosing has now made a whole new set of factors come into existence. But remember that this is a whole story that gets created, which means that the bulk of it is lying in your future, not in this current point in time. And so your human self can't see any of that yet. Although it has been created and that path is laid out, your human self will have no clue about any of it. All your human self will continue to see is just what's right in front of it. It will have no idea at the level of the physical senses that there is now a whole new reality laid out ahead of it. Now, this is an interesting thing, because remember that everything is forming itself according to your assumption in each moment. So your choice of what you are trusting in will determine which reality it is that forms itself ahead of you. If you choose that you get to have the outcome that you want, and then straight after choosing, you look around and base your expectations on what your physical senses are telling you, you will get sucked straight back into the old unwanted reality, where the things that you want just aren't available and are impossible to have. But if you trust in the bigger part of you, and you know that this new reality is there because you have chosen it and therefore the higher self has created it for you, and if you live from that knowing, then that is the reality that will play out. So to make this work, you need to choose to trust in the higher self over and above what your physical senses are telling you. You need to trust the source over the facts. And if you do choose to trust in the higher self, then you will be led along this new path that contains everything you desire. And everything you want and need will be provided to you as you make your way along this path. And the whole thing will fall into place in a way that feels unbelievably perfect. I know this because I have experienced it many times. But it really does require this choice to trust in the bigger part of yourself over what reality seems to be saying is possible. Now, once you've made this choice to trust in the higher self, you then really need to learn to flow with everything that shows up. You need to get good at assuming that everything that is happening is part of the plan that is leading you where you want to go. No matter what happens, assume that it is a good thing somehow. Like, for example, if someone rejects you or slams the door in your face and tells you that you can't go this way, assume that somehow this is designed this way for your benefit. Don't let yourself fall into thinking that this is a terribly bad thing and that it means that this isn't working, because otherwise you'll switch into a reality where that is true. So don't do that. Keep assuming that absolutely everything that shows up is designed this way on purpose to take you to your chosen outcome. Now, this doesn't mean accepting unwanted things. It doesn't mean you have to remain in an unpleasant situation. It just means that if one door seems to be closed, assume that either that door will open when the time is right, or some other solution will appear instead of that particular door. And if you learn to operate in this way and to keep trusting in the source despite what reality looks like, then you will cause what you are assuming to materialize into facts. And it really will turn out that the whole thing was designed perfectly to get you to your chosen destination. Now, it can be a bit difficult to understand the distinction between assuming that everything that happens is a good thing and not accepting unwanted things. The easiest way I've found to notice which one of these I'm doing is to ask myself, do I know that this is unfolding perfectly and that this is all leading to my desired outcome? Or am I assuming that this is a problem and that it means that I need to wait longer than I want to get to my chosen outcome? Or that I might not get it at all? Or that I need to continue putting up with this unwanted situation for much longer than I want to? And it's a case of getting really honest with yourself and noticing what genuinely feels true. It's no good trying to pretend to yourself that you're assuming one thing when in reality what feels true is something else. It's much better to actually acknowledge what feels true and then dismantle it by reminding yourself how this works and what it is that causes reality to be created. So it's all about noticing whether you know that you're on the path that you want to be on, the path that is leading you to your chosen outcome. And if you notice that you're not on it, then just choose again right now. And immediately you will place yourself back onto that path. So if something unwanted shows up and you get knocked onto another path, not your desired path, because the unwanted thing makes you think that this is a big problem and that it means that you can't have what you want, well, then you need to recenter yourself and remind yourself how this works. Remind yourself that everything out there is forming itself based on what you are choosing within you. And that therefore this thing that happened is irrelevant because it's only your choice that determines the outcome. And if you do that, you'll find that the seemingly unwanted thing will transform itself and turn into a step along the way that ended up leading you where you wanted to go. But again, it comes down to what you are trusting in. Because if you're looking at things with your human mind and you're limiting yourself to what feels possible from a logical point of view, then you're not going to get very far. To make this work, you have to allow yourself to trust in the unknown, in this infinite intelligence that your little human mind can't even begin to comprehend. When you become willing to allow things to happen that seem impossible to your human mind, then they will. But if you keep shutting down what is possible with your human logic, then you'll keep yourself confined to recycling the same old limited reality over and over again. Remember, this infinite intelligence can create absolutely anything. It really is completely limitless. It's a bit like if you're sitting down to write a fictional story. As the author, you can put whatever you want into the story. No matter how much of a fantasy it seems in comparison to what goes on in the physical world, there's nothing stopping you from making it real within your story, because it's your story. You're the one creating it. And there's nothing stopping you from putting whatever you want into it. And you need to understand that this is what's going on in terms of this physical world. From a human perspective, because we're inside the world, it looks like things are a certain way and that's just the way it is. There's nothing we can do about it. But from the perspective of the one writing the story, well, from that level, the writer is completely free to make the story into what they want it to be. If a writer chooses to write a story about, I don't know, trees that are made of candy floss, where you can tear off pieces of candy floss and eat it, then there's nothing stopping the writer from making that true within the story, because it is the writer that is writing the story. And so they can put whatever they want into it. The trick is to trust that this infinite intelligence always has a way to give you what you want. It is what has given you your desires, and you wouldn't be feeling a desire if the infinite intelligence didn't already have a way to fulfill that desire. But many times it does involve letting go of what your human mind thinks needs to happen in order for your desire to be fulfilled, and allowing this infinite intelligence to work its magic. Because often with our human logic, we end up trying to make things go down a path that is far less fulfilling than what we really desire. And that's because at our human level, we have very limited vision. We can only see so far. It's a bit like if there's a table in front of us that has, I don't know, an apple, an orange and a banana, let's say. And because that's all we can see, we think that our only option is to choose one of those three pieces of fruit. And if, let's say, our favorite out of those three is the apple, then if we approach things from a human perspective, we're going to cling on for dear life to that apple. Because from this point of view, it feels like either we get the apple or we have to make do with something less than what we want. But from the perspective of the one that is creating everything, it knows that there are millions of tables all covered in fruit of all kinds, including ones that it knows will taste so much better to you than an apple. But if you keep clinging on to that table and that apple, then you stop yourself from turning around and being shown all these delicious fruits that taste infinitely better than that measly apple. But to get to that point, you need to be willing to let go of the table with the 3 pieces of fruit on it. And to the human self, that feels scary because it doesn't know that all the other tables with all the other fruit exist. It can't see any of that. It thinks that if it lets go of this table, it might end up with nothing. But that's what is required if you want to experience abundance and the fulfillment of everything you desire. You need to be willing to stop clinging to the reality that you know, the one that is familiar, and be willing to trust the infinite intelligence to take you into a reality that is completely unfamiliar. And trust that it will guide you, and it will guide you within this unknown and unfamiliar territory. And that is how you allow reality to shift from the old unwanted one into this amazingly lovely new one. So this is what you need to train yourself to do. And it really is a journey. Don't get discouraged if you find yourself falling back into the unwanted again. Just notice what you're doing and choose differently now, in this moment. And keep doing that as many times as necessary. And the more you do it, the easier it gets, because you'll start seeing more and more evidence that this really does work. And then it becomes a lot easier to just immediately choose what you want, because you trust it without even having to think about it. So please do start doing this. Start where you are. Reach for that trust in the infinite intelligence that is always with you at all times. Reach for it as best you can and keep going from there. And if you do this, life will start to transform into this amazing adventure where all the things that you want will start showing up in your life, one after another, in ways that are so perfect and so exquisitely tailored to give you exactly what you really wanted that it will blow you away. I mean it. This really does work. So please do start taking this approach so that you can start seeing these amazing results for yourself in your own life. Okay, and with that, I am going to stop here for today. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe if you haven't already. As usual, you can put any questions in the comments or come and find me on Facebook or through my website. Thank you for your support, and I will see you in the next video. Bye for now.